Hi everybody, and welcome to example 5 on page 45 of the workbook here. Okay, and this is an example of a little bit more of an abstract nature that we're about to do here. Okay, so let's read this together. So they're giving us f, which is a differentiable function. Remember, differentiable just means it's a function that has a derivative. We can take its derivative. And then they give us a formula, y equals x to the fourth times f of x, and they would like us to find formulas for y prime and y double prime. Okay, what makes this kind of an interesting problem is the fact that we don't know what the function f is. It's an unknown function. And so the answers that we come up with here are going to be in terms of this function that we don't know. Okay, so let's start with the calculation of the first derivative, y prime. Just think about how we might go about that. Okay, so if you look at this function, x to the fourth times f of x, how are those two functions being combined together? Is that multiplication, division, addition, subtraction? Notice that x to the fourth is being multiplied by f of x. And the fact that we're multiplying tells us that the product rule is probably the tool that we want. So when we take this derivative, the product rule sounds like the first function times the derivative of the second. Okay, our two functions are x to the fourth and f of x, plus the second function, f of x times the derivative of the first. Okay, and that's just the product rule again. Okay, and to finish this calculation, we have two derivatives that we need to take. We need the derivative of f of x and the derivative of x to the fourth. Okay, well, if we start with the derivative of f of x, what do we do there? Okay, because f of x is not a function that we know the value of. We don't know what f of x is. And so the derivative of f of x, about the best we can do is to write down f prime of x. That's our notation for the derivative of f of x. Okay, so x to the fourth times f prime of x plus f of x times, and then what about the derivative of x to the fourth? Can we do that? That's just a power rule. Okay, if we take the derivative of x to the fourth, we're going to get 4x cubed. Okay, and so this is about the best we can do. That is our derivative of y. Okay, since we don't know what the value of f is, that's the best formula we can come up with. Okay, and we're ready then to think about what would we get for the derivative for the second derivative of y. Okay, well, the second derivative is just taking the derivative of the derivative, essentially, what we just calculated. So the question is, what would we need to do to take the derivative of our answer that we just circled above? Okay, well, notice that it has two pieces to it. There's x to the fourth times f prime of x, that's a product. And then we've got a second product of f of x times 4x cubed. So we've actually got two product rules involved here. Okay, let's start with the product x to the fourth times f prime of x. Just worry about that term. So if we write out the product rule, it's going to look like the first times the derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first. Okay, and so what we've written down so far just takes care of the term over here to the left. Now we're ready to move on to the term over here on the right and do the product rule again on that piece. So this time the first function is f of x times the derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first. Okay, that's a lot of writing. That's quite a derivative that we're looking at here. Okay, and we've got some derivatives to calculate to finish this up. I'm just going to kind of box them in. There's a derivative, there's one, and there's one. Okay, if we can write down expressions for those derivatives, we'll be done here. Okay, so let's go left to right. What would the derivative of f prime of x be? Well, if you take the derivative of the derivative, you're going to get the second derivative, f double prime of x. Okay, and then let's see, moving on, we get plus f prime of x, and we come to the derivative of x to the fourth, which again is going to be 4x cubed by the power rule. Okay, continuing. Next derivative that we need to take is the derivative of 4x cubed. So let's see, by the power rule, we've got a 4, and then we're going to get a 3x squared. Actually, let's write that all together. So 4 times 3x squared is just going to be 12x squared. Okay, and then finally, 4x cubed times the derivative of f of x, that's just going to be f prime of x. Okay, now what we've written, this would technically be an okay answer. We could stop here because we've taken all the derivatives, but we can simplify a little bit. Notice that these two terms look exactly alike. 4x cubed times f prime of x, and then 4x cubed times f prime of x again. We can actually combine those, if we want to, into one term. Okay, we've got 4 and 4. That's going to give us 8x cubed times f prime of x if we combine those. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and box that in as our final answer. There's a simplified final answer for y double prime.